Hello everyone, my name is John Bussard. I'm an HP Solution Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support servers, blade systems, storage, as well as networking technology solutions from HP. In this series of videos, we're exploring the Proliant Gen 9 line of systems. And what I like to do in my videos is I like to show you a slide from a popular PowerPoint and explain to you what that means within the management interface. Today I've chosen the HP iLO 4 management engine. Certainly iLO has grown in its features and capabilities over the years, which allows us to quickly provision, monitor, remotely optimize, as well as support our Proliant infrastructure. The system that I'm going to show you today actually has the iLO Advanced Pack installed on it, so it gives us additional features and functionalities such as a remote graphical user interface, as well as power capping capabilities. I'm going to show you those features as we go through this video today. So with that being said, let's log into the environment. So I can access the iLO 4 management engine through a dedicated out-of-band network port or a shared port on a system. So let's log in, and we're logging in through a web browser here. When we first log in, we're dropped off on the information overview page where we can get a variety of great information about our system. For example, the system health, the server is certainly powered on, what system we're dealing with, its serial number, and its product ID. We can also dive in further into the system and get the overall status of individual components within the environment. And here's a summary of that. We can look at things like the fans, temperature within the system, the power supplies, the processors that are installed, how the memory is configured, what network adapters I have inside the system, the storage, as well as the drives that are installed, and finally firmware. I also get some detailed logging capabilities and diagnostics. iLO Federation is a new feature that we're finding within iLO 4. I'm going to separate this out in a separate video. I think the features and capabilities of this warrant that situation. Next, we're going to look at the remote console. The remote console gives us a remote graphical user interface. So like we were sitting at the system, at the keyboard, monitor, and mouse, right, we get those capabilities remotely. Right, and I could do that through a Dotnet client, a Java client, or even a mobile app, so I can get access to the remote graphical interface through my Android or Apple iOS-based device. So let's scroll up here and let's actually launch the Dotnet client. One of the nice things about the client is I can resize it if I want to, however I want. I could even maximize it if I felt like it. Just like I was sitting next to the system, I have power capability, so I could press and hold the power button, give it a momentary press, a cold boot, or even a reset. I could send some keyboard commands if I felt like it. Virtual drives allows me to locally mount my optical drive if I felt like, a folder on my system, information from a URL, or even an ISO if I felt like it. So for example, let's open this up. You can see I've got a C as well as an optical drive. But if I go up here and I go down to an image file, I could select my Windows Server 2012 disk, its ISO, and you'll notice that that actually mounts here. And I actually could boot off this if I wanted to. So if I restart the system, I could even select to use that as a boot device and do an installation if I wanted to. All right, so let's go back up and unmount that. And so let's go back to the interface. All right, so we already talked a little bit about virtual media. We talked a little bit about power management, to be able to momentary press and hold, or what happens if the server comes up for the first time from a lights out situation. What do we want to do? Certainly if we have a whole rack of servers, we don't necessarily want them to all power on at once. Maybe we want to do a little bit of a delay. Power meter, how much power are we using within this system over time? You notice our current power is about 328 watts. And then finally, power settings. And this mainly, you come into this environment to enable power capping. All right, so remember, I'm not using a real lot of power inside my environment, but if I go back to the remote graphical user interface, you'll notice that I'm pegged at 100%. I've got a couple applications that are just burning up CPU cycles. So we're using about 100% CPU utilization. I do this so I can show you some of the features of power capping. So I'm only using about 330 watts of power, so I'm not using a real lot of power. So I'm gonna have to cap this pretty good in order for you to be able to see something. So it's gonna kick some error messages out just because I'm enable power capping so low. So if I enable power capping here, and I go to something like 6% of the power, which is only just under 200 watts, and I apply that. Right, but we can go back and look at our graphical user interface, and we can see that we've dropped to about 50% CPU utilization. So why would somebody want to use this? Well, some data centers have power budgeting within their environment, and that'll either be per data center or per rack, and this allows you to be able to budget your power more effectively or have a greater control over how your power is being used within your environment. Right? And I can certainly change this however I want. Apply that again. And you'll see now we're back up to about 75% power. And then we'll remove the power and capping features. And we'll go back up to 100%. All right, so that's an interesting feature and capability. Some other things, network that has to specifically talk about whether we want to use the dedicated iLO out-of-band management port or if we want to share one of the adapters that are within the system. Remote support, if you want the system to actually dial back to HP and let you know if there's been a hardware failure, you could do that as well. Administration, so if you want to actually update the iLO, you do that through here. Licensing, if you wanted to add your advanced pack license. Administrator, so if you wanted to add additional users. Access settings, if you want to access this. So certainly we're accessing this through a web page, but if you want to access it through SSH, you could certainly do that if you felt like it. Security. Management, such as SNMP email alerts or a remote syslog server. Key management or iLO Federation. And again, I would show you a little bit of the features and functionality of iLO Federation in another video. But this allows us to be able to manage our systems to a greater degree, and in such a way that I can actually see a BIOS roll by. So if I do something like this, I do power switch and I do a reset, we'll actually see the BIOS roll by. Right? And if I had installed a drive under virtual media, right, I could actually boot off an image if I felt like I can do an installation. Well, I hope you found this video informative, and please stay tuned for future videos.